Hello, and welcome back to Daily English Whisper. Take a slow breath and just relax. My name is Max, and today we are going to build something very important for your English. Not grammar, not long. Sentences, something simpler but more powerful. Questions. The title of today's episode is Essential English Questions, Listening and Speaking. And today you will learn how to use natural questions to start conversations, to continue conversations, and to feel more confident when you speak. Because here is something many learners feel. You understand some English, you can say simple sentences. But when it's time to talk with someone, you don't know what to ask. You feel stuck. You wait, and the conversation stops. Maybe you think, I need more vocabulary, or I need better grammar. But often, that is not the real problem. The real problem is you don't have ready questions in your mind. And without questions, conversation feels difficult. But here is the truth. Good conversation is not about speaking more. It is about asking better. Simple, natural, real questions. And today we will build those together. Not boring questions, not textbook questions, but questions you can imagine using in real life. Questions that feel human. Questions that open space for real answers. And here is the big idea for today. If you learn how to ask, conversation becomes easier. You don't need to carry the whole conversation. You guide it with questions. So stay with me. Listen. Slowly. Repeat when I ask you. And let these questions become part of your voice. Even if you feel shy, even if you feel unsure, you can start small. One question can change everything. Now, let me ask you something simple. Why are questions so important in English? Is it just to get information? Or is there something more? Think about a real conversation. Two people talking. Do they speak long sentences all the time? No. They ask, they react, they ask again. Questions create movement. They keep the conversation alive. And when you know how to ask simple questions, you don't feel lost anymore. You don't feel silent. You always have a way to continue. So today, we will use a simple technique. Listen and repeat questions until they feel natural. Not memorizing, not translating, just listening and letting the structure become familiar. Because once your brain knows the structure, you can change the words easily. Now, let's try a small practice. Just relax and listen. What made you think about that? Now, repeat after me. What made you think about that? Good. Again, a little more natural. What made you think about that? Nice. Next one. Where did you first notice it? Now where did you first notice it? Very good. One more. How do you usually deal with that? Now repeat. How do you usually deal with that? Excellent. Do you notice something? These questions are not basic. They are not the usual, where are you from, or what do you do? These feel more real, more specific, more interesting. And that is what helps you stand out in conversation. Now, very important, you don't need to understand every word right now. You don't need perfect pronunciation. You just need to get used to the sound, to the rhythm, to the structure, because later, in real conversation, you will not build the question from zero. It will come more naturally. So remember this. Listen to questions, repeat them, and let them stay in your mind. This is your small daily habit, and even a few minutes like this can change how you speak. Now, let's talk about the real challenge. Not understanding questions, not grammar, something deeper. The real challenge is this. You don't think of questions in the moment. Maybe you know some questions. You studied them, you saw them before, but in a real conversation, your mind goes quiet. You think, what can I ask now? And nothing comes. Maybe you feel this, I don't want to ask something boring. I don't want to repeat the same question. I don't want to sound strange. So you stay silent. Or you say something very simple, and the conversation slowly ends. But here is something important. You don't need perfect questions. You need ready questions. Questions that are already in your mind. Questions that feel natural because you practice them. And today, we will build those. Not many, just a few, but strong, useful, real. And you will learn how to use them in your daily life. Even if you are alone, even if you don't have someone to talk to. Because conversation practice doesn't start with people, it starts in your mind. So today, I will show you a few simple ways to practice questions in real situations. Not artificial, not forced, but connected to your daily life. And these ways will help you think faster, speak easier, and feel more comfortable when you ask something. So stay with me and imagine yourself using these questions during your day, because that is the goal. Not just to learn them, but to feel them as part of you. And before we begin, let me ask you something. Are you ready to try, even if it feels a little uncomfortable? Because that small discomfort is where your confidence begins. Good. And one small thing, if this is helping you, if you like this calm way of learning, you can support it by liking the video and staying with me. It really helps. Now, let's begin with the first way, to build your question habit. Way number 1 is very simple, but very powerful. Ask questions about what people say, not just about who they are. Most learners learn questions like, where are you from? What do you do? These are okay, but they don't continue the conversation for long. Real conversations grow from details, from reactions, from curiosity. So instead of asking general questions, you ask about something specific that just happened. Let me show you. Imagine someone tells you something like, I had a strange experience this morning. Most people say, oh, really? And stop there. But you can go deeper. You can ask, what made it feel strange? Now listen. What made it feel strange? Now, repeat. What made it feel strange? Good. Again, more natural. What made it feel strange? Nice. This question is powerful because it invites a story. It invites more detail. Now, another example, someone says, I've been thinking about changing something in my routine. Instead of saying nothing or changing the topic, you can ask, what kind of change are you thinking about? Now repeat, what kind of change are you thinking about? Very good. You see? You are not asking random questions, you are following the conversation. That is the key. Now, one more. Someone says, that situation didn't feel right. You can ask, what didn't feel right about it? Now say it. What didn't feel right about it? Good. Again. What didn't feel right about it? Nice. These questions are simple, but they feel real. They show interest. They keep the conversation alive. And here is something important. You don't need to ask many questions. Just one good question can change everything. It can open the conversation. It can make the other person speak more. And it gives you time to relax. So during your day, when you hear something interesting, even in a video, even in your mind, pause for a second and ask a question about it. Not a basic question, a real one, a curious one. And remember, you don't need to be perfect, you just need to try. Even one question per day is already progress. You are learning to think like a speaker, and that changes everything. Now, let's continue. Way number 2 is very practical and very powerful. Ask questions about decisions, not just facts. Most basic questions ask for information. What did you do? Where did you go? But real conversations become interesting when you ask about choices, about why someone decided something, because decisions always have a story behind them. Let me show you. Imagine someone says, I decided to leave earlier than usual. Instead of asking something simple, you can ask, what made you decide that? Now listen. What made you decide that? Now repeat. What made you decide that? Good. Again, more natural. What made you decide that? Nice. This question is strong because it goes deeper. Now, another example. Someone says, I changed the way I usually do things. You can ask, what pushed you to change it? Now repeat, what pushed you to change it? Very good. Again, what pushed you to change it? Nice. Now one more. Someone says, I almost didn't say anything. You can ask, what stopped you from saying it? Now say it. What stopped you from saying it? Good. Again, what stopped you from saying it? Very nice. Do you feel the difference? These questions are not basic. They feel more human, more thoughtful, and they create stronger conversations because now the other person feels you are really listening, not just waiting to speak. And here is something important. You don't need to ask many questions. One good question about a decision can create a long answer, and that helps you because you can listen more, you can relax, you can think. So during your day, when you hear something about a choice, a decision, a change, pause for a moment and ask a question about it. Even if it's only in your mind, even if you are alone, this builds your instinct, your ability to react in real time. And over time, these questions will come faster, more naturally, without effort. And that is how you build real conversation skills, step by step. And now, let's move to way number 3. This one is very important for real conversations. Ask follow-up questions that show attention, not new topics, not random questions, but questions that come from what the other person just said. This is what makes a conversation feel natural, because you are not jumping, you are staying inside the same idea. Let me show you. Imagine someone says, "It felt different than I expected." You don't change the topic, you stay there, and you ask, "In what way was it different?" Now listen. In what way was it different? Now repeat. In what way was it different? Good. Again, more natural. In what way was it different? Nice. This question is simple, but very strong, because it invites more detail. Now, another example. Someone says, "I wasn't completely sure at first." You can ask, "What made you unsure?" Now repeat. What made you unsure? Very good. Again, what made you unsure? Nice. Now one more. Someone says, "It changed after a while." You can ask, "What changed exactly?" Now say it. What changed exactly? Good. Again, what changed exactly? Very nice. Do you notice the pattern? You are not creating a new conversation, you are extending the same one. And this is what real speakers do. They stay with the moment, they explore it, they go deeper. And this makes the conversation feel alive. Now, here is something very important. You don't need to think too much. You don't need to build a perfect question. You just need to react to what you hear. Even a simple follow-up is enough. So during your day, when you hear something interesting, pause for a second and ask yourself, what could I ask next? Even if you don't say it out loud, even if it stays in your mind, you are training your reaction, your speed, your confidence. And before we continue, tell me something in the comments. Which type question feels easier for you so far? Questions about details, questions about decisions, or follow-up questions? I'd like to know, and stay with me until the end, because the last idea will connect everything and make your questions feel automatic. Keep going. You are learning to think inside the conversation. Now, let's move to the final way. This one is the most important because it connects everything you are learning. Way number 4 is this. Turn your questions into a daily habit, even when you are alone. Not only in real conversations, not only with other people, but inside your own day. Because here is something very important. If you only practice questions when you speak with someone, you will always feel slow, you will always feel unprepared. But if you practice questions during your normal day, your brain becomes faster, your reactions become natural, and when a real conversation comes, you are ready. So, how can you do this? Very simple. You create small moments where you ask questions about your own life. Not basic questions, real questions. Let me show you. Imagine you are doing something and something feels different. Instead of just noticing it, you ask, "Why does this feel different today?" Now repeat, "Why does this feel different today?" Good. That is your first micro habit. Now, another moment. You are thinking about doing something but you are not sure. You can ask, what would happen if I tried this another way? Now say it. What would happen if I tried this another way? Very good. This builds curiosity, and curiosity builds conversation. Now another small habit. You notice something about your environment. Not something obvious, something subtle. You can ask, what am I not noticing here? Now repeat, what am I not noticing here? Nice. This is not a common question, but it trains your thinking. It makes your English more flexible. Now, one more. At the end of a small moment, you can reflect. You can ask, what did I learn from that? Now, say it slowly. What did I learn from that? Excellent. Do you see what is happening? You are not waiting for conversation. You are creating it inside your mind. And these micro habits are small. They take seconds, but they repeat. And that repetition changes everything. Because now, questions are not something you try to remember. They become part of how you think, part of how you observe, part of how you live. And when that happens, you don't need to force conversation. It comes naturally. So today, try one or two of these small questions during your normal day quietly, in your mind, or softly with your voice. That is enough. You are building something powerful step by step. Now, let's expand this final idea, because your questions can grow very naturally. You don't need to learn many. You just need to play with the ones you already know. Let me show you how. Imagine this. You already know a question like, what made you decide that? Now, instead of repeating it exactly the same way, you can adjust it slightly. You can change the feeling. For example, what made you decide that at that moment? Now repeat. What made you decide that at that moment? Good. This small change makes the question deeper, more specific. Now, another example. You already know. What changed exactly? You can expand it. What changed exactly after that? Now say it. What changed exactly after that? Very good. You see, you are not learning a new question. You are stretching it, making it more flexible. And this is what real speakers do. They don't memorize hundreds of questions. They adapt a few in many ways. Now, one more idea. Sometimes you can combine two simple ideas into one question. For example, what made you feel that way? And what did you do next? Now repeat. What made you feel that way? And what did you do next? Nice. This type of question is very powerful because it opens space for a longer answer, and that helps the conversation grow. Now, here is something important. You don't need to use these questions perfectly. Even if you say them slowly, even if you pause, it's okay, because what matters is the intention. You are showing interest. You are staying in the conversation. And that is what people feel. Now, one more small habit. When you hear a question you like, don't just forget it. Keep it. Repeat it later. change it a little, use it in your mind. For example, I like that question, I'll use it again. Now, say it. I like that question, I'll use it again. Good. This is how your question bank grows. Slowly, naturally, without stress. So today, take one question you liked, just one, and use it in different ways. In your mind, in your day, even quietly. Because repetition with variation creates real fluency. You are not memorizing anymore. You are building your own way of speaking. And now, let's bring everything together. Take a slow breath and just listen. Today, you didn't learn many rules. You didn't memorize long lists. You built something more important. You built a way to think in questions. You learned how to ask about details, how to ask about decisions, how to ask follow-up questions, and how to practice even when you are alone. This is how real conversation begins, not with perfect sentences, but with curiosity. So here is your secret sentence for today. The idea that connects everything. Ask simple questions and stay curious. Say it with me. Ask simple questions and stay curious. Again, slowly. Ask simple questions and stay curious. Good. Now, think about your day. There are many small moments where you can ask something. When you notice something different. Why does this feel different today? When something surprises you, what made this happen? When something changes, what changed exactly? These are not big actions. They are small. But they repeat. And what repeats becomes natural. And what becomes natural becomes part of you. That is the goal. Not to study questions, but to think with them, to use them without effort, to let them guide your conversations. And listen, even if you feel slow now, even if you pause, even if you are not sure, you are already improving. Because you are training your mind to react. And that changes everything. And I want you to remember this. I'm proud of you. Because you stayed. Because you listened. Because you are building something real. If you want to continue, if you want more natural questions, more real English, more calm practice, you can subscribe to Daily English Whisper and keep learning step by step. No pressure, no rush, just progress every day. This is Max, and I'll see you very soon. Take care and keep asking.